Let's bow our heads prayerfully. Almighty God, as we gather here today for this special occasion in the history of our island, we invite your awesome presence to be with us. Let your wisdom guide every discussion, presentation, and decision making. Give us the understanding to listen and to value each other's ideas. We ask, Almighty God, for your blessings even now, and may this particular conference grace us with benefits both now and in the future. These mercies we ask. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Thank you for joining us at the Soufrière Volcano 30 Years On Conference. It is now my pleasure to introduce the chairperson for today's proceedings. Please join me in warmly welcoming Mrs. Lorraine Lewis.
You may be seated. Her Excellency, the Acting Governor, Mrs. Sherry Rodney, Premier and Minister of Finance and Economic Management, the Honorable Reuben T. Meade and Mrs. Meade, Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, the Honorable Mrs. Marjorie Smith, Minister of Education, Health and Social Services, Dr. the Honorable Ingrid A. Buffon, Minister of Agriculture, Lands, Housing, Environment, Youth and Sports, the Honorable John P. Osborne, Financial Secretary, the Honorable Kenya Lee, Leader of His Majesty's Opposition, Honorable Paul J. Lewis, other honorable members of the Legislative Assembly, former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith C. Rowley, Head of Office, United Nations for Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, Mr. Kenroy E. Roach, Honorable Pewson Judge, Justice Bernie Stevenson, members of the Public Service Commission, the Auditor General Acting, Miss Marsha V. E. Meade, Permanent Secretaries and other heads of departments, former Permanent Secretary, Mr. Franklin V. Michael, OBE, Head of Montserrat Volcano Observatory, Dr. Graham Ryan and Mrs. Ryan, Professor Costanza Bonadonna, Dean of the Faculty of Sciences at the University of Geneva and President of the International Association of Volcanology and Chemistry of the Earth's Interior, IAVCEI, Dr. Irusilla Joseph, Director of the University of the West Indies Seismic Research Center, doctors, professors, scientists, friends of Montserrat, and other esteemed guests. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It truly is a pleasure and an honor to serve as chair for this morning's opening ceremony of SHV 30, Soufrière Hills Volcano 30 Years On. As a proud Montserratian, this moment is meaningful. 30 years ago, life on our island changed forever. And while so much has been lost, so much has also been learned about resilience, adaptation, and about the strength of community. This conference, under the theme, Turning Magma into Momentum, brings together people from all walks of life, scientists, residents, emergency workers, policymakers, and creatives, to reflect on that journey. Over the next few days, there will be presentations, field trips, discussions, a community day, and cultural events, all aimed at exploring not just the science of the volcano, but the stories and strategies that have helped shape the Montserrat we know today. Even for those of us who aren't scientists, this conference matters because we've all lived it. We've felt the impact. We've rebuilt, we've adjusted, and we've carried on. So as this important conversation unfolds, I encourage everyone to listen, share, and take it all in. Welcome, and may this week be a time of learning, connection, and renewed momentum for Montserrat and for all who care about its future. Thank you. I will now invite Ms. Anne-Marie Dewar to do a presentation accompanied by Mr. Josiah Passad on drums.
A beautiful little island. Not for the first time for some of you, so welcome back. And a huge, extra special welcome to you who have come for the first time to our shores. We're glad to see you. Here's a great, big Montserrat hug. One thing we know for sure, and you will find out too, Montserrat is a land of grace, moving in our own rhythm and style, a truly, truly special place. Or as we say with joy and pride, Montserrat nice. Yes, we still have that lady on the hill who takes action in her own sweet time. But we learned how to get along with her and to move out of her way when she needs a little space to run and play. Unfazed, we're still striding forward, still moving, turning magma into momentum, like a pyroclastic flow of passion and purpose, turning potential into progress. Yes, things have changed. If this welcome were 30 years ago, I would have invited you to discover our special treats. A breathtaking hike to the Great Alps waterfall. A heart-pumping climb to the summit of Chance's Peak. A therapeutic dip in the hot water pond. The panoramic views from St. George's Hill. An energetic hike over those same Soufrière hills to the picturesque village we call Long Ground. Well, things have changed. 30 years on, our landscape is different. But one thing has never changed. Montserrat's still nice. With new landmarks and special treats to enjoy. Welcome to the new Montserrat. We still gather, have fun. We still laugh. Oh, and we live. Still moving in rhythm and style. Though the spots have changed from Parliament Street to Braids and Little Bay, from Sturge Park to Salem Park. No longer can we explore Great Alps waterfall. Now we trek to the dry waterfall. We still build and settle, but now in our Western, Woodlands, Davy Hill, Lookout, and Drummonds. Montserrat's still nice after all. You see, many things have not changed in the new Montserrat. Delicious goat water, our national dish. Sweet string band music. Masquerades, dancing. Turquoise waters to swim and fish. Lovely beaches and sun-kissed shores. Gentle breezes. The most friendly people. Smiles still warm. Spirits unbroken. The most gorgeous sunsets, mingling rich orange, purple, and gold, symbols of the harmony in our land, where persons from far and near mingle together in one rhythm, in one Montserrat, celebrating our culture of peace and friendliness, caring and creativity in festivals, folklore, language, and legends. Welcome to our island, our Montserrat, changed and yet unchanging in all that is unique and blessed. Meet our folks and understand the magic of this beautiful land. Here, let your dreams take wings and hope restore in our peaceful island. There's so much more. And before you depart, find that magical spring in Runaway Gut and sip the waters there. As the legend goes, if you drink from that burn, to Montserrat you must surely return. So, welcome to our shores. We're glad you've come. Welcome again. Welcome home. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dewar and Josiah. We will now have some brief remarks by the acting governor, Mrs. Sherry Jemmett Rodney.
Good morning. Please allow me to accept the protocol that has already been established. It is a unique honor and a privilege for me to welcome you all to the SHV30 conference under the theme, Turning Magma into Momentum. For those of you who have traveled to Montserrat for the first time, welcome to the Emerald Isle of the Caribbean, a place where the beauty, warmth, and the charm of our people and our island will captivate you. As Ms. Dewar just said, it's magical. For those of you who are returning to Montserrat, and I see some familiar faces in the audience, welcome home. We're happy to have you back. For those of you who live in Montserrat and who are here to be part of this conference, thank you for taking the opportunity to be here. Now, the SHV30 is an event that I'm certain will be rich in insight, reflection, and shared experiences. Over the coming days, you will have the opportunity to explore not only the science of volcanoes, but also the human stories that have been shaped by the Soufrière Hills eruption. For me, it's difficult to accept that 30 years have already passed. In my own life, when I try to reflect on the past 30 years, I find it difficult to recall everything clearly. Some memories remain vivid. while others have faded with time. But some events have a way of anchoring in our minds. They imprint deeply, often shaping how we see the world and how we respond to it. The eruption of the Soufrière Hills volcano is one such event. The eruption has left an indelible mark on Montserrat and its people. For those of us who lived through the height of the volcanic activity, we know every time we hear thunder in the middle of a sunny day, we hold our breath for a second and look towards the sky in the direction of the volcano. We know that every time the wind direction changes, bringing the sulfur fumes and that blue haze to the north, it brings back memories of those early days living in Plymouth. And we know that every time we go to an event at the Viewpoint Hotel or to the Isles Bay Beach or a place on the southern side of the island, we park in a way that we can make a quick escape, just in case. For many Monstratians, and when I say Monstratians, I mean all who lived and worked in Montserrat and shared the experiences of the volcanic eruptions, for us, those memories are not just personal, they are foundational. They have influenced how we plan, how we prepare, how we respond in our homes, our workplaces, and in our institutions. As a nation, these memories have shaped our policies, our approaches to development, and our collective sense of identity and a purpose. For many Monstratians, the volcanic activity ignited an interest, opened opportunities, and started career paths that probably would not have been considered prior to the eruptions. All of this, to me, exemplifies turning magma into momentum. And this is why this conference matters. As we look back, we do so not to dwell in the past, but to learn from it, to honor the lives changed and lost, to celebrate the strength of those who had to leave everything behind, the dedication of those who stayed, those who returned, and those who plan to return. Most importantly, we look back to ensure that the lessons of the past 30 years guide us into a safer, more informed, and more prepared future. We are now working to ensure that we capitalize on our unique experiences and use it to propel Montserrat and its people forward. This gathering is more than a commemoration, it is a commitment. A commitment to continued learning, to collaboration, and to building a future for Montserrat where science, policy, and the community come together for the good of all. SHV 30 is also a celebration of Montserrat, its culture, its people, and its spirit. Throughout the conference, you will have the chance to experience our island's vibrant social life, from cultural nights to field trips that bring you face to face with the buried city and the landscapes forever changed by the eruption. You will find that these moments are not just enriching, they are essential to understanding the full story of Montserrat. I thank you all for being here, and I look forward to the meaningful conversations, connections, and the outcomes that will emerge from the SHV 30 conference. I thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rodney. I would now like to invite the Honorable Premier, Mr. Reuben T. Mead, to provide some remarks.
No, I'm not, and will never be. welcome. Yesterday in church, I invited the congregants to take a walk down memory lane. Well, my invitation to welcome you here today on behalf of the government and people of Montserrat came with a hint that going down memory lane of a different sort was quite in order. So here we go. 30 years ago, one Tuesday evening, 17th of July, 1995 to be precise, along with the Reverends Harold Gill and Joseph Lloyd of blessed memory, I was leading worship, what we call our annual missionary meeting at the Methodist Church in Long Ground. There we were, right at the foot of the Soufrière Hills volcano, blissfully unaware of even its name or its nature. During the worship service, it sounded like there was an unusual level of chatter in the street at Long Ground. No one disturbed the peace while church was in session, whether at the Methodist church or at the Pentecostal church. Whether one was a regular worshiper or a non-goer, church always took priority in Long Ground. My husband was seated, as usual, just in front of the back pew. And he was not, and has never been, someone who is easily distracted. So when eventually he left his seat and went out, I thought that the goings-on outside had enough purpose to grab his attention. Minutes later, he was at the window in the chancel area to say that he had to leave because there was some need to activate the Emergency Operations Center. He said something about volcanic activity. Someone was going to get him there since we had driven to church together. I'll give you just one anecdote from that evening to illustrate the continuing uncertainty that this development brought. I mean, what the volcano provoked. The steward, one Isilda Lynch, and the young musician, a Miss Galloway, who had accompanied us, had heard as soon as we got out about volcanic ash falling in the Trials area. The young lady's family lived in Kinsale, even though we had traveled from Salem. She wanted us to go to Trials to find out what was going on and to make sure that her family was all right. The older voice said, "No way, Reverend Meade, we are going to take the Great North Road. We are not going near Plymouth." And that was the first of many squabbles that would punctuate living with an erupting volcano, which we weren't really aware was erupting in our midst. And then countless provisions of blessing that made living and surviving doable. In one day, a team of 4 scientists arrived on invitation. And even though they couldn't give answers, their presence was reassuring. Even though sometimes later, they became one of the many targets to absorb the indescribable frustrations that persons were experiencing. But that was not the only side of the relationship between the scientists and the people. Down memory lane, I recall one evening that speaks to the worth with which the scientific advisors were invested. It was a Saturday evening. We were at the home of the late Honorable John Osborne, one of Montserrat's heroes. We were at his home in Long Ground. He was entertaining us along with some visitors from the United States Virgin Islands. And I mean, the chairs wouldn't keep still. It was that night when we felt more than 100 earthquakes. I'm not talking about what the seismometers and so picked up. I'm talking about what our bodies could feel. We had been telling people that they should have a bag packed with 2 days' worth of supplies in case it was necessary to move. Well, of course, in my house, we didn't pack anything. There were 3 residents of our family on island. Our son Ben was camping with the Montserrat Defense Force. And I knew that we would be among the last 2 to leave Montserrat. So we had never packed anything. But that night, I mean, after several attempts to sleep and being disturbed, I packed a bag for myself, and I packed one for Ruben, who was fast asleep. And then I went and shook him, and I said, Ruben, you sleeping through all of this? Maybe this is the night when we have to leave Montserrat. He had a radio, one of those handheld radios, at his side of the bed. He told me, see that here? If this is the night, the scientists will call me. In the meantime, let me sleep, please. So, the scientists were very important and valued advisors. As a Christian theologian, I make no apologies for understanding as provisions of God's grace the contributions that you, the scientific community, whether in the field of earth sciences, social sciences, human sciences, including disaster management, political sciences, media communications, etc., have made towards the development of a more resilient Montserrat. As a theologian, a trip down memory lane holds merit only insofar as it promotes a better understanding of how to move confidently into God's future, in which the unknown, uncertainty, and even unpredictability will forever remain. The more we know, the more we always need to find out. Thank God for science. Provisions of grace, I say, the scientists. Thank you. I want to thank, too, the political leadership that has guided us, particularly at the start of this disturbing trade. I recall the Honorable, or rather His Excellency the Governor, Frank Savage, and the Premier, the Chief Minister, Ruben T. Meade, presenting daily reports on ZGB radio. A report that was instrumental in keeping the population aware of the facts as best as these could be so described, because there was a lot of misinformation. We didn't talk about fake media so much then, but I can tell you how many times my parishioners would tell me about what their family in New York and England had told them about what was happening in Montserrat, and they were not being told. Listening to ZJB, these two, Frank Savage and Ruben T. Meade, was seemingly like peas in a pod. Of course, if you were close enough to the inside like me, you would know that they didn't always see everything the same way. But that picture of unified leadership was something for which we have to give God thanks today. I know, of course, that they were the face of a team, including not only the forerunner of the METO, but also the management of the Emergency Operations Center, the support of the Montserrat Defense Force, and other agencies, all of whom we give God thanks for today. Today, as part of the Thanksgiving, I must make mention of our prophetic musicians and other community artists who strengthened us emotionally, mentally, culturally, spiritually, and positioned us to navigate the challenges we were going through and would go through. I speak of artists like Arrow and Hero of Blessed Memory, Zunki, Reality, Tanti, Cupid, etc. Anne-Marie Dewar, Yvonne Weeks, Chad Cumberbatch, and the many of us who were guided by the gift of Professor Sir Howard Fergus, and so many others. One generation has elapsed between our first awareness of the Soufrière Hills volcano and today. A generation has gone, and generations will follow. Every blessing on your conference then. May this present the present and future generations of Montserrat and those everywhere who are and who will be influenced by the happenings of the Soufrière Hills volcano. May they be blessed with the fruit issuing from your deliberations at this conference as you commit to turning magma into momentum. Welcome to Montserrat. Enjoy the Emerald Isle, even while recognizing that its lush greenery cannot be divorced from its challenging volcanic reality. Every blessing. Welcome.
Thank you, Reverend Meade. We are, well, we know. We are continuing with our remarks and would like to invite Dr. Graham Ryan, Director of the Montserrat Volcano Observatory, to provide some brief remarks.
Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you all here. I will keep my remarks quite brief. On behalf of the MVO and the staff at the MVO, particularly Conference Chair Dr. Karen Pascal and her team, who have worked tirelessly and with great passion and creativity to bring you this conference, I would like to welcome you to what promises to be an exciting and insightful conference. I have been heartened by the enthusiastic and generous support, both local and international, that underlines concretely how important this conference is to the community both inside and outside of Montserrat. This 30 Years On conference is special, with a different context to the last one, SHV 15. During the last conference, intense volcanic activity was a very recent memory, whereas we have not had any eruptive activity since that meeting almost 15 years ago. This brings a lot of different questions to the fore, which will be explored here this week. I'm also particularly excited for this conference, as it is quite holistic by design. We will all be looking at the volcano and its impacts on Montserrat from multiple perspectives, from our scientific understanding of the processes that control and drive it, to the devastating impacts it has had on the island, and most importantly, how best we can forge a new and sustainable future in the face of uncertainty. We also have some really exciting entertainment and field trips planned, which will broaden and enliven your experience here. So I look forward to listening to, engaging and sharing with all of you over the coming week, and coming away with new ideas and perspectives which will inform Montserrat's next chapter. Welcome to you all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Graham. And ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Professor Costanza Bonadonna, President of the International Association of Volcanology and Chemistry of the Earth Interior, IAVCEI.
Good morning, everyone. Allow me to adopt the protocol that has already been established. It is a great honor and a deeply personal moment for me to contribute to the opening of this conference today, both as president of IAVCEI and as someone who had the privilege to work here during the eruption in 97 and 98 at the very start of my scientific path. Coming back to Montserrat stirs many emotions. This island, this volcano, this community shaped not only my scientific path, but my understanding of what it means to work at the intersection of natural processes, human lives, and uncertainty. I'd like to begin by warmly thanking the organizing committee, the Montserrat Volcano Observatory, its director, Dr. Graham Ryan, and the dedicated MVO staff, past and present. Your work over the last 3 decades has been extraordinary, scientifically, institutionally, and in service to this community. And above all, I want to thank the people of Montserrat, whose strength, knowledge, and resilience are central to the story we are here to reflect on. This conference is more than a scientific milestone. It is a space to recognize that communities are not just impacted by volcanic eruptions. They are central actors in reducing risk. The people of Montserrat have shown the world and the whole volcanological community what it means to adapt, to carry memory, to rebuild, and to lead. As volcanologists, we work with seismic data, gas fluxes, diaphragm thicknesses, but none of that matters if our work does not translate into safer, more empowered societies and communities. That's why I'm so grateful that this conference places community knowledge and experience at the center of this conversation. Soufrière Hills has transformed our science, but more importantly, it has transformed how we think about our role in society as partners and collaborators, not just as experts. So let this week be a moment to honor that legacy, to listen, to learn, and to strengthen the bridge between science and the people it serves. So thank you again to the organizer, to MVO, to the people of Montserrat for the opportunity to be part of this extraordinary gathering. It is a privilege to be back. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bonadonna. We will now have a cultural presentation by the next level dancers.
It's rebuilding time. All monstrations abroad. Please come. Nobody go run me away from me country. Yeah, we go stay till kingdom come. Sometimes we shake and rumble. Act up now and then, but paradise goes settle down again. I love every hill and gully, every brook, stream and valley. She's still my emerald city, Montserrat nice, nice, nice. Despite the danger, we held up all together, so you have a place to come back to. How could you desert paradise on earth? Constructions don't know what this land is worth. I love every hill and gully, every brook, stream and valley. She's still my emerald city, Montserrat nice, nice, nice. Oh, still nice, hey, still paradise, hey, still nice. England don't tempt me, the British can't fool me. Then I go make me run from me own country. No true monstration needs an invitation. Pack your bag, come home to your land. I love every hill and gully, every brook, stream and valley. She's still my emerald city, Montserrat nice, nice, nice. Mango ripe, you can't hungry. Breadfruit still on breadfruit tree. Fish, they put nourish sweet. Everybody live like family. Still nice, still nice. All in the country, still nice. Salem, still nice. Old Town, still nice. Woodland, still nice. Na 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 nice. Na 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 nice. Na 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 nice. Na 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 nice. Put your head, still nice. St. John, still nice. Axe Valley, still nice. Montserrat, Montserrat, still nice. Montserrat, always paradise. Montserrat, Montserrat, still nice. Montserrat, always paradise. Montserrat, Montserrat, still nice. Montserrat, always paradise.
And thank you to the next level dancers for that brilliant performance. We will now move on to the keynote address for this morning, after which we will have a 10-minute question and answer. That's 10 minutes, I've been instructed to let everybody know. Persons wanting to ask questions should identify themselves and proceed to the microphone. Dr. Erosilla P. Joseph is the director of the University of the West Indies Seismic Research Center, SRC, in St. Augustine, Trinidad and Tobago. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry and Zoology, a Master of Philosophy in Chemistry, and a PhD in Volcanology from UWI. With over 20 years at the SRC, she became director in November 2019, overseeing the center's operations, volcanic monitoring, and outreach programs. Under her leadership, the SRC achieved significant advancements in operational efficiency, research innovation, and community engagement. She secured substantial funding for volcanic monitoring and led the center through the acclaimed management of the La Soufrière eruption in St. Vincent. Dr. Joseph's research focuses on geothermal systems, volcanic gas emissions, and crisis management. She has secured over $3 million in research funding and has an extensive publication record, including editorial of a special issue on the La Soufrière eruption. Active in public outreach, Dr. Joseph engages in educational initiatives and international collaborations to promote volcanic hazard awareness and disaster resilience. Her contributions have been recognized with several awards for her contributions to the field of volcanology. Dr. Joseph is dedicated to enhancing disaster management strategies in the Caribbean, integrating advanced technologies into monitoring processes, and maintaining the SRC's leadership in geophysical research. Please help me to welcome Dr. Irosilla Pat Joseph to give her keynote address.
This is forward, am I? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Protocol having already been established. Thank you so much for that generous welcome. Without further ado, I would begin my talk today. And this is a brief... Right, this is the title. Thanks. Thank you so much. So we'll have a quick look at advancing resilience and sustainable development in the Eastern Caribbean through geohazards monitoring and community preparedness. Quick overview, we'll look at the geological setting, which I'm sure everybody here is familiar with already. Introduce the UWI SRC, what we do, and why. Look at regional natural hazards consideration, and some lessons learned over the last 70 years of our existence. Right. So, of course, with the setting of the tectonic setting of the Caribbean, it generates subduction processes, which results in the formation of not only volcanoes but earthquakes. And we have had some significant events in the historical times, the largest of which was an 8 to 8.5 magnitude earthquake in 1843. And this was located between Guadeloupe and Antigua. These processes, of course, generate volcanoes as well as earthquakes, and we have at least 21 volcanoes in the Lesser Antilles, of which 6 have erupted in the last 400 years, and 11 has shown surface manifestation of activity. Oh, great. All right, good. So this is where SRC has come in. So over time, with the periodic earthquake swarms and volcanic activity in the past, there was a need for a regional organization that could respond to and monitor these events. So the SRC was established in 1953, and since then we have become the leading organization for geophysical monitoring in the English-speaking Eastern Caribbean. We provide service to the governments and provide advice to 9 territories that have at least 17 of the region's 21 volcanoes. We also provide education and outreach services, and of course we study the volcanoes in our region. So since 1953, this is when SRC was established, we have seen many volcanic seismic crises and several volcanic eruptions, including, of course, Montserrat, Soufrière Hills Volcano, St. Vincent, and Kikimjani, the submarine volcano off the coast of Grenada. Of course, volcano observatories are, as we all know, are focal points for understanding volcanic activity and not only forecasting, but communicating the information about volcanic hazards to not just the public, the authorities, and communities living in volcanic areas. Some of the natural hazards consideration that we also face in the region that impacts on how we provide advice and how we monitor is the fact that, of course, the Caribbean is not only a tectonically active area, but we also see hydromet hazards. And this is an annual thing, and it leads to the not just the vulnerability of our region to hazards like tropical storms, flooding, landslides, etc., but we also have to cater for the impact on the monitoring networks. We also have return periods that are very long for some of these low frequency but high impact events. And we also have the perception in some instances where disaster are acts of God. God is whatever country you happen to live in. And this is some of the factors we consider when we engage with the authorities and the communities that we provide a service to. How are the activity monitored? Of course, we use the standard techniques employed by most observatories, which include seismicity, monitoring seismicity, ground deformation, collecting gas and water samples, and we've moved into new technologies such as the use of satellite and remote sensing to collect thermal data and INSAR. Right. So over time, the network has developed from an analog one to a hybrid, which is a mix of digital networks. And now, since 2005, through the efforts of many scientific staff and researchers and our collaboration with international agencies who've provided funding to assist in the development of the network, we have now transitioned to a fully digital network. And this means that there are a certain amount of redundancies. We use satellite communications as well as the normal internet services. And we also provide support to the tsunami early warning system in the Caribbean. Part of our development also includes our work in education and outreach. And this has been a really significant development throughout our history, where in 1953, education and outreach was primarily done by the head of the department. Over time, and with a number of events, this transitioned to, in 2003, to obtaining funding to support the position of an information technologist, I believe. And this person transitioned into a regular member of staff in the form of our outreach manager, who now contributes significantly to the operations of the SRC in terms of how we communicate not just to the public but to the authorities, and how we translate scientific information in a way that people understand. And this came into play very significantly in the 2020-21 eruption of St. Vincent, where because it was COVID and there were a lot of restrictions in place, including the lockdown of the countries and borders being closed, that we heavily relied on our education and outreach team to be able to share information in near real time to the public and the world at large. Sorry. So we'll now look briefly at I deliberately did not include Soufrière volcano here because I know that we'll be having lots of discussions about it. So I decided to share a little bit about other volcanoes that we monitor in the region. So I'll just briefly speak about La Soufrière St. Vincent, of course, the Kikimjani volcano, submarine volcano in Grenada, and volcanism in Dominica. So this is brief. We'll begin by St. Vincent, and this is a brief overview of the timeline of the event. The most important thing to note here is that the eruption began at the end of December effusively and this effusive phase lasted for about 3 months before it transitioned to an explosive eruption. The other thing to note is that the effusive activity began without much precursory seismic activity, and the way in which our volcanic alert system that we use to manage, and not just how we respond to the eruption, but also which guides the authorities on what they need to do to start the management of that needed to be tweaked. Because at the time, the volcanic alert level system was geared towards responding to an explosive eruption and not an effusive. So based on the alert level system, an eruption meant that we were supposed to transition to an alert level red. In this instance, we did not go to red during the effusive phase. We stayed in orange, and that was because the eruption was, at the time, centered to dome growth, and it did not affect, at the time, the wider public. And it gave the time for the government of St. Vincent to prepare for the management of an explosive eruption, and it also gave us time to improve our monitoring systems. So the response, the successful response that we had in St. Vincent to this eruption was not a sudden thing. It took years and years of interactive and long-term relationships that developed, starting with more than 10 years of something that's called Volcano Awareness Week. This is a weekly event a yearly event that happens over a week in St. Vincent, where scientists and education and outreach teams go to St. Vincent and support the National Emergency Management Organization with hazard awareness activities related to La Soufrière St. Vincent. And this involved visiting schools, having field trips, engaging with authorities and wider stakeholders. And this long-standing relationship built not only visibility but trust in the scientists as well as the authorities and civilians that we interact with. In that time, we also assisted NEMO with updating their volcanic emergency plan, and the testing of the plan actually took place in 2019, where there was a full-scale evacuation that took place as part of the Carib Wave exercise. So this all assisted when the volcano actually transitioned to an explosive eruption, and this action had to be put in place for real. One of the very significant tools, or I shouldn't say tools, but the mechanisms that we used for community engagement in St. Vincent prior to the eruption was something that was led by Prof. Richard Robertson. It was the Volcano Ready Communities Project. This project, and I'll describe it a little bit better in the next slide, engaged communities living in the red zone on the flanks of the volcano, and it led to several significant contributions to the ability of the community to be able to respond to the eruption themselves, and provided them with tools and the education needed to do so. Part of this also facilitated shelter assignment of communities, and this was even prior to the eruption. So a closer look at the Volcano Ready project. It not only enhanced community-specific emergency response procedures, it allowed capacity building of the residents to plan, prepare, and respond to the emergency due to volcanic and other hazards. One of the key things with the Volcano Ready Communities project is that it enabled people not to just respond to volcanic hazards, but because we know that we live in a multi-hazard environment and face other hazards such as flooding and landslides, it worked in a way that the community had information and preparedness tools to respond to a multi-hazard in a multi-hazard way. And of course, it strengthened their knowledge and awareness of the environment. So some of the tools that we used to do this was through our education and outreach, which of course, as I mentioned before, is a significant part of our operations. And through the project, we were able to produce a number of posters, billboards, animations, teaching tools, an exhibition, trail guides, and all of this went into the entire education and outreach armory to help provide information to the public. So in specific, our response to the eruption included not just strengthening the network and conducting field work to advance our hazard and risk assessments, but we worked closely with the National Disaster Coordinator to coordinate the monitoring efforts, participated in public and virtual town hall meetings. Many of you would have seen, because it was COVID, a lot of things had to be done virtually, such as, and we even had drive-through community meetings where Richie would have used a bullhorn on a vehicle to communicate with the public, provide regular advisories and briefings to a large body of decision makers, and to respond to media inquiries, not just locally, but regionally and internationally. Some of the management challenges, of course, we mentioned COVID, the pandemic, and the protocols, because not only did the pandemic mean that movement was a challenge, it also meant that public interaction, not just among our staff and the public, but in terms of, what was the word? When we had to isolate ourselves, when teams overlapped and all of that so that nobody contracted the virus, because of course we were working very closely together, so it means if one person was affected, the other person was likely to be affected as well, and there were no vaccines available at the time. We had significant resource constraints, which meant that partnerships and collaborations allowed us to lean on those supports to help obtain equipment. USGS provided rapid equipment needs, and then we started to use other resources to strengthen the network. The SEDIMA mechanism also provided a valuable resource to mobilize resources. And of course, there was the possibility of rapid changes in volcanic activity. The lahars that, of course, we knew continued after during the rainy season and the hurricane season, and the fact that we had the increasing physical risk to the monitoring staff themselves, and we had to determine what the threshold for risk was where we do fieldwork on the volcano that was about to transition to an explosive eruption. So some of the main lessons and key takeaways was that long-term active engagement with disaster management and local communities is essential for building trust. The agreement on rules and responsibilities is important for the entire monitoring operations. The establishment of a monitoring network and operational mechanism and the mobilization of resources and funding, to provide real-time on-island operation is also key when dealing with a volcanic crisis. It is a JEP. And the ongoing engagement with regular scientific updates and trusted voices is a significant part of a successful crisis management operations. Evolving emergency plans and procedures contribute significantly to the responsiveness of the public, and an experienced team on the ground is a really important part of responding to an eruption, as the team would have been one that we would have been seeing years, on an ongoing basis. People would have seen people that they knew and had a relationship with prior to the eruption and felt comfortable in engaging with them and trusting the information that they were sharing. So we move on quickly to Grenada. Of course, you know, Kikamjani is a submarine volcano located 9 kilometers north of the coast of Grenada. It's the only active submarine volcano, and believe it or not, Kikamjani actually erupts more often than any of the other volcanoes, except that it happens underwater, so it's not as obvious to the public. Except, of course, when we post the information online. So the depth of the summit is currently 182 meters, which is not significant enough to cause a tsunami hazard, but that is one of the key things that concerns not only the government, but the public anytime they see activity at Kikamjani. It is monitored by 3 seismometers that are located on some of the islands offshore Grenada as well as in Sorters. You can see here a brief overview of the eruptive history of Kikamjani going back to 1939. Typically in the past, the Kikamjani had a kind of a cyclical activity where it would show a 10-year period of activity. However, in I would say in the 2000s, it started to change its behavior, and it started having seismic swarms and eruptions on a more frequent basis, every 2 to 3 years as compared to the 10 years. So its last period of volcanic seismicity was last year in 2024. Prior to that was also in 2020. The last eruption was in 2019. Some of the hazards would be the same as you would see for above-ground volcanoes, but the additional challenge that Kikamjani has is that it continues to degas underwater, and that, of course, changes the buoyancy of the water above it, and that would affect ships sailing over the area. So for that reason, there is a permanent maritime exclusion zone around the volcano. Some of the things that we consider when making decisions associated with Kikamjani is the fact that it needs to be very quick. This volcano does not show a very large seismicity in its background phase. There's one event ever so often, once a month, maybe every 2 months or more. But when activity increases, we know that it rapidly escalates if it is to transition to explosive. But any increase in seismicity is often associated with change in behavior at the volcano. So we need to respond very quickly when we see that happening. Communications, of course, we also need to be clear beforehand of what is happening, because we can't physically see the volcano on the surface. And of course, we use social media to help us share the correct and truthful information. We move on to Dominica, the land of volcanoes. It has the most live volcanoes in the Caribbean. It has 9 of them as compared to 1 in every other island in the Eastern Caribbean. And all of the volcanoes are potentially live, except the Appleton and Rousseau, therefore in the south, is located in an area with a very dense concentration of volcanoes, so it is extremely vulnerable to volcanic activity. Dominica also has shown significant seismic activity in the past, and has a number of magnitude 7 events that have struck near it in the last 70 years. The maximum magnitude was a 7.4 event that occurred on the 29th of November 2007. The picture on the right is just a depiction of events that were located on Dominica from the period 2019 to 2024 with a magnitude greater than 1. So the Boiling Lake. The Boiling Lake is a hydrothermal feature that's located next to the area called the Valley of Desolation. It is referred to as a crater lake, however, it's a drowned fumarole. This is a gas vent that filled with water. In the past, there has been at least 13 recorded periods of instability at the lake, the last of which, since 1876, the last of which was observed in July of 2024. So in its normal state of activity, the lake is filled, it's near boiling, and it degasses a lot of steam. In periods of instability, the lake drains, it stops emitting any gas, and there's no heat associated with it. So why does the lake empty? So this goes into the research area. So it is currently believed that the water levels are sustained in the lake by the bubbles of the volcanic gases and the heat that escapes from the rocks beneath it. However, when there's a disruption of that flow of the gas and heat, that causes a blockage in the system, and the water then collapses down into the water table. This happens for a number of reasons. It's been associated, in 2004, it was associated with a large magnitude event near Dominica that caused the vents beneath the boiling lake to close, and there have been landslides that have temporarily blocked the vents. And then another possible reason is during periods of heavy rainfall, such as in storms and hurricanes, we have seen a lowering of the outlet of the lake, which then lowers the overall surface of the lake. I mentioned recent monitoring techniques. So we have invested in new techniques, such as using drones to do mapping. We have worked with the authorities to install a camera, capture thermal images of the lake. And this is the period that I spoke about in July when the lake experienced instability. The instability lasted from July to August, into early September, actually. So this is just a very brief period that I'm showing here on the slide. And of course, we have done measurements of the thermal variations through time. So in terms of the hazard implication, it is important that we continue to monitor the system because, as you've seen for other events, such as White Island and Ontake in Japan, phreatic events, these are when water flashes to steam. This happens at the boiling lake, and it can and has in the past resulted in the loss of life because people were asphyxiated. They were based on the CO2 concentrations. And the boiling lake is a tourist attraction in Dominica, and we need to improve the warning and risk communication advice to the public and authorities. There are plans in place that will be finalized by December for a cable car to be installed for visitors to visit the lake. And this is where we need to liaise with the government and the tourism industry to ensure that mechanisms are put in place to provide the early warning needed for visitors and to monitor the lake. So I will end there by looking at some of the future considerations. So, of course, there's a need for improving the governance and policy initiatives for building resilience in the region. That is an ongoing initiative. We need more funding from our governments to support and make full use of the existing and competent regional institutions with a proven ability to generate knowledge and provide information to the governments to make useful decision-making and to build partnerships at all levels. We need to engage the communities and stakeholders, do demand-driven research, and to let the past guide our future. That money spent on disaster relief is insufficient on preparedness and mitigation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Joseph. We will now open up to everyone here. 10 minutes of question and answer. There's a young man there that will float around with a mic for anyone who would like to ask any questions. So if you just raise your hand to indicate if you do have a question, please remember we have a 10-minute limit.
Good day.
Morning.
Good day. Good day, Dr. Joseph.
Good morning, Kafu.
Welcome back to Montserrat.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we are putting on this conference here in Montserrat.
Yes.
My question is, what do we expect to gain or benefit from putting on this conference? I'm saying that in hindsight of what we did a few years ago, the Soufrière conference in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And that was just before the eruption, you should say, a few years before. So what are we hoping to get from this conference so that it may help other folks in the region and maybe around the world in preparing for volcanoes? And I'm not so sure, if I remember, what Soufrière is strengthening resilience in volcanic areas. So that is my question. A bit long, but, you know, I may only have one chance.
Well, I can try to answer that, but I'm sure there are other people in the audience who would give you, be able to contribute to the answer. So I'll just start things off by saying that I'm glad you mentioned Soufrière, and this is one of the collaborations that I spoke about that helped with strengthening resilience in volcanic environments. And yes, it was done in St. Vincent, but it was also done in other islands in the Caribbean, including Montserrat. So these are mechanisms by which we, and it includes events such as these, where we commemorate, we use certain events that have happened throughout the region as tools to foster community engagement and to keep knowledge and interaction of the scientific community with the public and other government stakeholders. Because as I mentioned before, because we deal, at least volcanic eruptions and earthquakes are often low frequency but high hazard impacts, we need to kind of keep the public engaged so that memories are still engaged and people still understand how to react to events, because people forget and often knowledge is not passed on, and these are ways in which we try to do so. So we also hope that by doing things in the different islands and engaging the scientific community internationally, that the Caribbean region understands that this is not just a problem that we face in the region, but it's an international problem, and we are connected globally by partners who are interested not just in the research, but also contributing to the sustainable development in the region. So I hope that helps, and I do, if there's anything that's unclear that for instance, Prof. Robertson or Prof. Barclay here can add, I welcome that.
Hi. So I'd just like to say, for those of you here from Montserrat, just to reinforce what Professor Bonadonna said, I was the principal investigator of the Soufrière project. There's so much that we have learned, those of us who are external scientists, by being involved during the Montserrat crisis. And genuinely, the lesson globally that community is important during an eruption is something that us, Professor Bonadonna, Professor Calder, we learned as baby scientists in '96 when we first came out, that this is just such an important part. So in terms of this conference, I think that learning is what we took, and we took it to St. Vincent. That learning is something that we keep doing. And what's really fantastic about this conference is the emphasis here on how we create momentum after the eruption, how we fully engage with sustainable development. And so from my perspective, that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, we have a question on this side. Paiko, over here.
Hello, good day, everybody. My name is Melissa Graham. I'm actually from Dominica. And first and foremost, thank you for having me. And I do not in any way wish to take away the focus on Montserrat, But I guess you saw the presentation, and you would hear that we have 9 active volcanoes. So of course that should be something of concern. But I've noticed if you come to Dominica, volcanoes would not be the talk of the town. Because you know where we are located, we tend to focus a lot on hurricanes. So my concern is, or maybe what I'd like to know, if you were to advise us based on your experience, do you think that we should, I mean, it's, in any disaster we should be cautious and we should be mindful of the potential damage and challenges, but how much do you believe that we in Dominica should maybe pay a little bit more focus on volcanoes and the potential eruptions?
So it is very important that the public understands the environment in which we live. So volcanoes are a benefit for many reasons, not only the tourism value, but of course the fertile soils, the economic potential from the products and so on, eruptive products. But because Dominica in particular has such a concentration of them, it is important that the public understands, especially communities living closer to the volcano, where to go in terms of safety, if something happens, and to be aware of the monitoring that goes on and any information that is shared with respect to changes in activity. That happens through our engagement with the national disaster organizers. Now, unfortunately, in some countries, there is a lot more engagement, in particular with relation to volcanoes. In others, Dominica is a very multi-hazard environment, so often the focus is on the hydromet events that happens more frequently. So that is something that we try to strengthen by different outreach activities, but there is need for improvement there, and we continue to work with the Office of Disaster Management to try to strengthen that community engagement and education. You will see soon a new tool, a new product, animation product that was specifically developed for Dominica, and it speaks about volcanic some myths, and it also speaks specifically about the boiling lake. So that has, literally, it has just been finalized, and it will be launched soon. And it is an effort from Miss Stacey Edwards, who is our outreach officer, who engaged with the public and who actually helped create the animation. So we are doing what we can to try to engage, but there is need to continue that. I see Prof. Robertson has a contribution to that response. Prof. Robertson, Richie, and Lloyd. Oh, God. And then up front, Mr. Mitchell.
Dr. Joseph, the Caribbean region is fragmented, in that we are insular, and we are also fragmented by language. Given the fact that in developed countries, larger developed countries, where there is finances set aside for research funding, they can also program a significant part of their national budget to finance disaster reduction. Apart from the UA, which has had a good record, do you think that other regional institutions such as CARICOM and, let's say, the CDB are doing enough to finance disaster reduction in the region?
So I can't say that I can fully answer that question. I can only say what I know up to this time, which is, while there are efforts to help fund some regional initiatives towards sustainable development, I do not believe that there is enough being done by CARICOM and the different financial institutions to do that. And this is something that needs to be recognized at the highest levels of government, and needs to be advocated for. We have tried, the seismic is 70 years old. Many people have tried to do that, but in a region where there's so many other priorities, unfortunately, this gets pushed back. Richie.
So this will be our last.
Oh, sorry, I have to make it very good then. Sorry, Richard Robertson. And just to sort of reinforce, sort of segue into some of what Lloyd said. Should I stand up? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. In the context of what you said, clearly the Seismic Research Center have been doing some interesting work throughout the region. But one of the critical things that comes out of what you're saying is that clearly there's issues to do with resourcing and resources.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, so I thought somebody was saying something. Yeah, given where you are and your experience, certainly in the context of the fact that in a couple of the islands where you have had emergencies currently and in the past, there have been challenges with funding from the very territory in which you have had to respond. And the challenges has to do with the fact that when you respond, you often have to deploy a team on the island, which requires the government to sustain that for a certain time. Given all of that, if you had in a magic wand and you had the ability to do what you wish without resource constraints, what would you see as some of the critical things that seismic and the region need to be doing in the context of disaster risk reduction for volcanoes in this environment?
Sure. So two things. I would definitely try to advocate for something that similar to what the St. Vincent government did, which was put into policy sustainable funding, regardless of the government that comes into authority, for future funding of these regional institutions. And I'm not just referring to SRC, but institutions like SEDIMA and CIMH and others who require that funding to be able to do the work that we do and provide the monitoring information necessary for the safety and sustainable development of the countries. The other thing I would do is something like what you did for St. Vincent through the Volcano Ready Communities project, which was to engage at that community level in a deeper way and preparing them with resources that they need to be able to help respond to the emergency themselves, and not preparing them just for volcanic eruptions, but to the multi-hazard complex systems that we operate on a daily basis to help sustain their lives and livelihoods. Thank you so much. I appreciate this, everyone.
Thank you. Well, I can see that everybody's excited and there's another million questions, but they've got a week's worth of sessions that everyone will be able to ask their questions. Allow me to invite Dr. Karen Pascal. She's chair of the SHV 30 of the Scientific Organizing Committee, to move the vote of thanks.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to see you all here, and also to know that people can hear us on ZJB and also see us on GIU. So thank you very much for being here. As we bring the opening ceremony of the SHV 30 conference to a close, it's only fitting that we pause to express our sincere gratitude to all of those who made today and indeed this entire week possible. So allow me to begin with today's program. Thank you to Ronik, who's currently, I think, helping out as MBO staff for the conference, who led us in the territorial song, and to Bishop Dr. Melroy Mead, who not only invited God's presence into this space, but also prayed over the entire week of activities, setting the spiritual foundation for all that is to come. We extend a heartfelt thanks to Mrs. Lauren Lewis, who so gracefully chaired this morning's proceedings with poise and professionalism. To our distinguished speakers, Acting Governor Mrs. Sherry Jemot, so Reverend Mead, in place of Premier Mead, sorry, and Director Graham Ryan and Professor Costanza Bonadonna, President of IAVCEI. Thank you for your timely and thoughtful remarks, each highlighting the significance of this moment for Montserrat, for science, and for the global volcanic community. And to our keynote speaker, Dr. Pat Joseph, thank you for an exceptional keynote address. Where are you? You're here. Your insight, passion, and perspective have set a powerful tone for the rest of the conference. And thanks also to those who already asked questions and contributed to this question to already start the discussion. Of course, no Montserratian celebration is complete without culture and entertainment, and today's lineup did not disappoint. A huge thank you to Miss Anne-Marie Dower, Josiah Perso, Genesis Steel Orchestra led by Stephen Elwin, the Next Level Dancers, and the ever-vibrant Earl Ursula Brown, who all gave us a taste of true Montserratian spirit, and we loved every minute of it, or are going to love every minute of it. But today is more than just a ceremony. It's the culmination of a month of dedication, planning, and collaboration. To everyone who played a role in the journey to SHV30, we say a heartfelt thank you. To the Scientific Organizing Committee, the local organizing committee, and all the staff at the Montserrat Volcano Observatory and UE Seismic Research Center, thank you for stepping up and supporting wherever needed. Your commitment and teamwork have brought us to this proud moment, and I should also add like few collaborators who are actually not part of these committees and who also helped out. To all those who registered, attending both in person and virtually, thank you for choosing to be part of this milestone event. Thank you especially to people who went outside of their comfort zone, whether because of a very long and difficult travel or by preparing presentations in this frame of a scientific conference where they are absolutely not used to do that, or for presenting online. And thank you also to those who wanted to present and wanted to be here but were not able to make it. Maybe next time. We are especially grateful, of course, to our sponsors, to the Office of the Premier Honorable Ruben Mead and your dedicated team. Thank you for ensuring this event could happen on the ground here in Montserrat. To our other valued sponsors, the Simon Rock Foundation, the INGV, the Deepak Grocery, the IAVCEI, Montserrat Utility Limited, and the Bank of Montserrat and the Governor's Office. We appreciate your generous support and belief in the importance of this conference. We also thank the many local partners and organizations we collaborated with, including the Montserrat Tourism Authority, the Montserrat Art Council, Ticket Pulse, the MCA, Montserrat Red Cross, Department of Environment, the Montserrat National Trust, and Fly Montserrat, and even the Montserrat Government Office in the UK, to name a few. For every meeting, every email, and every bit of support, thank you very much. To ZJB Radio Montserrat and the Government Information Unit, thank you for helping us share SHV30 with the world. Your support ensures this conference reaches our audience far and wide, including the Montserratian diaspora, of course. The journey to SHV30 has been a long one, but it has also been rich with learning, reflection, and collaboration. As we officially open the conference today, we stand in deep gratitude to everyone who contributed to making this vision a reality. As chair, I must also extend an open invitation to each of you who are listening or watching to fully participate in our upcoming sessions and activities. We have a full week ahead. Be sure to join us for our Community Day on Wednesday and support the MVO and our many stakeholders. And if I have omitted anyone, please know that it was not obviously intentional. We will continue to say thank you throughout the week. So again, thank you, and may the week ahead be as impactful as it is inspiring as we turn magma into momentum. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pascal. And we would now like to invite to the stage a previous Calypso King of Montserrat, Earl Hustler Brown, and he will be singing Solidarity.
Woo! A blessed good morning to Chief Hiker.
The history of division is a history of Caribbean man. United by culture, separated forever. The death of federation, upon the list of no vision. For a test of unity, come to Emerald City, the home of solidarity. We have police from Grenada and Dominica. Solidarity. They lock up the men, love up women, we still cool with them. Solidarity. We have preachers of religion from all over the region. Solidarity. Spell it. S-O-L-I-D A-R-I-T-Y. Solidarity. Show some love and sing. Sing and sing and sing. Solidarity. Show your flag and sing. Sing and sing and sing. Solidarity. Woo! What a blessed country. Equal premise from Haiti. Volcano, oh no volcano. No going back Santo Domingo. What about the Caribbean? It going on and it coming. Tell them for a test of unity. Come to Emerald City, the home of solidarity. Raphael from Guyana is kept for Godfather. Solidarity. Living as one, loving as one, and then die as one. Solidarity. Harry from TNT, just line with me and CPE. Solidarity. S-O-L-I-D A-R-I-T-Y. Solidarity. Show some love and sing. Sing and sing and sing. Solidarity. Show your flag and sing. Sing and sing and sing. Solidarity. They say they want unity, yet they hold on to insularity. No CARICOM, no OECS, who never survive the acid test. We must share the joys of tomorrow. Show some love and show our sorrows. Hey, for love and unity, come to Emerald City, the home of solidarity. We have nurses from Anguilla, Nevis and Guyana. Solidarity. Now is the time to join the line. We're one of a kind. Solidarity. All over this country, there's a feeling of unity. Solidarity. S-O-L-I-D A-R-I-T-Y. Solidarity. Show some love and sing. Sing and sing and sing. Solidarity. Show some love and sing. Sing and sing and sing. Solidarity. Wave your flag and sing. Sing and sing and sing. Solidarity. Show some love and sing. Sing and sing and sing. Solidarity. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Love and unity. Woo! Thank you.
Well, I hope that woke you guys up and ready for the next sessions. So from the remarks and Dr. Joseph's presentation, poem, dance, and song, I do hope you all feel welcomed and ready to engage and to add to the SHV30 conversation. And with that, I now declare the Soufrière Hills Volcano 30 Years On Conference officially open. Thank you for joining us. Feel free to partake in the refreshments. And for those who have not registered, please register. Sessions will resume in 30 minutes. Thank you, everyone.